In the studio with me, I've got Jessica Robinson from Mid-Michigan Recovery. Good morning.
Good morning, Karen.
Thanks so much for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about your organization,
Sure.
Mid-Michigan Recovery.
Yeah, so Mid-Michigan Recovery Services has actually been in the Lansing, Tri-County regional area since the late 50s. We were originally an organization that had gathered community members together to talk about alcoholism in the area, and they moved into what they called the Tri-County Commission on Alcoholism or Council on Alcoholism. And in the late 60s, they opened their first halfway house called Holden House.
Okay.
And then really soon thereafter, we opened another house called Glass House for women. So Holden was for men. Glass House was for women. That was to help people who had found themselves homeless to find safe shelter during a time when they needed the extra help and that extra shelter to be protected so that they could recover from the disease of addiction, which at that time, there was a prevalence of that, the education around alcoholism.
Yeah.
We also saw a lot of drug addicts at that time, so we started serving both. We extended our services to treatment services. So we have residential services at Holden and at Glass still.
Okay.
So we serve men at Holden, women at Glass. We have transitional housing, sober housing for men at Transitions. And we also have outpatient and intensive outpatient services for treatment, and we have support groups for LGBT community members who are, wondering if they have any issues related to addiction or if they have friends and family who they're concerned about, and a friends and family group. So lots of services, lots of support surrounding people who question whether they have a problem with alcohol. We also have highway safety classes. So we know that many students have issues with either drinking underage or getting caught drinking and finding that they have been problematically drinking while driving, while walking on sidewalks sometimes. And so we do have highway safety classes that help students to learn more about what addiction is, what problem drinking is, and how to kind of help themselves to determine that and to move forward successfully. So,
do you deal with a lot of binge drinking when you're dealing with students?
Yes. Yeah. There's a prevalence of binge drinking in college-age students. So what I would suggest is 80% of the students on campus may drink from time to time, and binge drinking is one of those things that happens, which we call problem drinking. So, and binge drinking is defined, by the way. There's a difference between addiction, alcoholism, and just problem drinking or periodic problem drinking.
Okay.
Binge drinking would be considered anybody who drinks up to, it's men is, I think, 15 drinks in one sitting, and women would be 8 drinks in one sitting. Problem drinking would be anytime a male would drink 5 drinks in any one, it was 15 drinks per week, 8 drinks per week for men and women. Daily, it would be 5 drinks during one period, or for women, 4 drinks during one period. And you can see how that prevalence changes for men and women.
Yeah.
Just because our body chemistry is different. So, and that, of course, varies per individual. If you're a heavier set person, you may be able to consume more for tolerance. Lighter weight, you may, find that you have less tolerance. And then chemical makes a difference, too. So.
Right. Yeah. Wow, you guys have a lot of programs going on.
Yes, we do.
How do you fund them?
So we are a small staff and we are a nonprofit. We do have some funding through the federal government, SAMHSA. We have grant funding. We have donor funding. And we also take certain forms of insurance. So if somebody wonders, we can certainly answer those insurance questions. But we cater a lot to people who are indigent or are in that kind of poverty level, or may also be homeless. So we do have Medicaid, Healthy Michigan, and then many other types of insurance that we take as well. But we do fund people who don't have any insurance or any way to bill. So
okay. That's really interesting. Now, you're going to do a golf tournament.
We are. We're super excited about our golf tournament. It's coming up on Thursday, September 14th.
Okay.
We've gotten a lot of excitement around it, so we have some great sponsors. We have a event within that, which is reception with silent auction. So if you're not a golfer, you can still participate with us. You can go to our website for more information on how to register. But at that golf tournament at Chisholm Hills Golf Course, we will will be actually using the proceeds from that to help us fund a new residence for the Holden House program, and then we will be moving some of our other programming so that we can expand our programming. So,
oh wow,
yeah, so
that's
we're excited.
great.
We're
yeah.
excited.
So, how many houses do you have total now? Then,
So right now we're running the program in 4 separate houses. We have 3 programs, 4 houses. That sounds a little weird, but our transitions program is actually extended between 2 homes.
Okay.
And then we have our outpatient services, which is also housed in a business office. So, yeah.
How do you differ from, say, Alcoholics Anonymous?
So Alcoholics Anonymous is a support group and community. They are very focused on one different kind of recovery, which is a 12-step model of recovery. For Mid-Michigan Recovery Services, we're actually therapeutic services, so it's a medical, or well, I should say a behavioral and mental health intervention. And
Okay.
we work with medical professionals. So we do have a medical director on staff that oversees all of our residential services areas and also informs us when we have questions about medical provisions, because many times what we find is that people experience more than just what I would suggest is alcoholism or addiction. They also struggle with mental health issues, physical health issues, and so what we try to do is wrap those individual services around each person, kind of looking at all of those different pieces of their health. So yeah, I hope
I think
answered
that, yeah, I think that's interesting, because don't you find that a lot of people who suffer from addiction, a lot of them have depression or other,
Absolutely, yeah.
and
So
they self-treat?
they self-medicate. That's true. A lot of times addiction starts with a form of medicating whatever it is that's going on. So they may be utilizing drugs that are, normal. So I will talk about a personal experience. So for me, I am also a member in long-term recovery. I had been diagnosed with depression. And what I found was that as I was getting into my early teen years, or well, I should say late teen years, other kids were drinking. And so in order to fit in socially, I would drink with them. I found that helped with the kind of anxiety and depression that I suffered from. And what I found was that I had a higher tolerance. So where other people were feeling the effects of the alcohol with one drink, it took me a few extra in order to feel like what I saw them looking.
Okay.
And over time, I built up a higher tolerance. They tried to put me on antidepressants. Those didn't work so well, and I was still using alcohol. So I would suggest for community members who wonder about that whole idea of really paying attention to what the prescription and doctor says. When they say don't take with alcohol, it's usually a good idea not to.
Yeah, they usually mean it
right?
for a reason.
And
yeah.
Sometimes you self-evaluate and you educate yourself and you think, oh, I know how to do this. And so for me, that looked like taking the pill in the morning and thinking it would have no effect drinking at night. And what I found over time was there was a large effect.
Yeah.
And so I actually did go into a recovery program and found that helped and have been able to sustain sobriety for over 9 years now. So
That's great. Congratulations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks.
And it is amazing to me how many people can be suffering from this, and so many people that you don't know.
True.
That are
Very
suffering
true.
from this.
Yeah. It's actually 8 to 9% of any community will have some form of addictive problem or alcoholism problem. And what you'll find is that many people function for a while without exhibiting external symptoms because they end up being able to kind of balance, right? Or they hang out with other people who really aren't recognizing those symptoms, either because they're hanging out in partying situations or they're isolating enough that you're not seeing the hard stuff that's going on inside. So,
Oh, okay. All right. Very interesting. I didn't realize that your program was so expansive.
it is indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
We're very involved in community activities as well. So I know that you had Kathy Reddington on with Project Fox.
Yeah, yeah.
The Ingham County Substance Awareness Coalition is also doing a lot of work around prevention and treatment and things like that. So, so we've got a lot of community members. The Families Against Narcotics, Mason Area Task Force. I could go on and on with all the different coalitions that work with us to address this issue. So.
Now, have you seen an increase of heroin addiction as opposed to
Yeah.
alcoholism, or is
So-
it kind of keeping
They're really keeping
track.
pace with each other,
Yeah.
although the media is really more concerned with what we call the epidemic of opioid addiction.
Yeah.
It's become a mainstream issue because it's affecting so many families, and so and it is very deadly very quickly.
Yes.
When you overdose on an opioid, it's an immediate issue because the opioid depresses your breathing. It actually causes you to essentially asphyxiate, you just stop breathing altogether.
And I know we had Kathy here about Narcan, about educating people with Narcan and getting
we do
it out
that
there.
as well. So what we do have Narcan on site. So when we do our friends and family groups and go out into community, we can educate people and also help them to get those tools. We try to focus on folks who can't get it. There's actually a standing prescription at many pharmacies now. So if you do have a friend or a family member who is experiencing that addiction, my best suggestion is come in and get a little more education about what that looks like and how you can truly help to intervene and get them to the appropriate healthcare help, and also come in and see what we can do for you in order to get you armed with the right weapon against that. So like anybody who has a family member who may be susceptible to allergies, which would cause them to die quite immediately, they would have that EpiPen. We have Narcan, which is an intervention that certainly should not be abused, but certainly is an incredible tool to help someone have one more opportunity to get to treatment. So.
Yeah. Wow. So what's your website if people want more information?
Our website is mmrsinc.org.
Okay.
So, you can get lots of information on our website. You can connect to us through Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Do you find that it's mostly family members that come to you first, or is it the actual
No,
addict
we
that
actually have
comes?
plenty of both, and we
Yeah?
work very closely with court systems as well. So
okay.
they try to intervene and do assessment as to whether the person really is, an offender, or whether it is that they truly have some kind of an undiagnosed health issue. So we have many community members that are in law enforcement that have received intervention first aid training for mental health, and that helps them to identify people
goodness.
who have substance use issues as well. So
Yeah.
I think the whole community is really wrapping their heads around this idea of what in the world is this whole thing with substance use and substance abuse and addiction, and
Should people go to jail, or should they get treatment?
should they get appropriate health care. So
Yeah, there's a lot going on with that.
there is. There's a
Absolutely.
lot of social justice issues that are, we're well involved in social justice issues in terms of how many offenders and repeat offenders actually do experience issues with mental health and substance use addiction. So
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in.
thanks so much for having me.
I am talking with Jessica Robinson from Mid-Michigan Recovery, the Executive Director. Thanks again. This is the Coffee Break on LCC Radio 89.7 and LCC TV. It's your community station.